Hey, it's Dave here. Today I'm going to show you how to clean up your configuration.yaml file in Home Assistant by splitting it up into a more efficient and organised structure. You're going to need some coffee for this one. Actually, you're going to want two. Before you continue watching, the first thing I need you to do is make a full backup of Home Assistant. If you get any of these steps wrong, you could seriously break your system. And if you're running Home Assistant in a VM, take a snapshot too while you're at it. Trust me, if something goes wrong, you'll be glad you did it. YAML. YAML ain't markup language. Now before I show you how to separate these entities, you first need to understand the fundamentals of dictionaries, lists, and packages. Dictionaries, a structured collection of named entities defined using indentation. Lists, a sequential list of entities defined using hyphens. Packages, a way to organize multiple entities across different files which Home Assistant merges into a unified configuration. Each entity must be defined using either a list or a dictionary. It cannot be both. You might want to pause the video and take a photo of this slide, as you may use it later on. There's a couple of prerequisites you're going to need to install if not already done. One of which is File Editor, which is required to access the folder structure and edit files such as configuration.yaml. This can be found from the add-in store, so if you haven't already got that, just check it's installed, and if not, install that add-on straight away. Another optional add-in you may wish to install is Studio Code Server. This has some really helpful features like the Home Assistant helper or autocomplete when typing in your syntax. I'm going to go through the install in a bit more detail, as I'm assuming you had already installed File Editor. Navigating back to the add-on store, you're going to do a search for Studio Code Server. And then you're going to click on the results. Then you're going to click Install, wait for it to install, and then go ahead and check Watchdog and Show in Sidebar, and then click Start. Once that's started, you're going to launch it from the sidebar. You're going to get a warning message and just click I understand, and that's installed. The majority of the recording is going to be done using Studio Code Server. However, I'm going to quickly switch between Studio Code Server and File Editor just to demonstrate some differences. From Studio Code Server, it's much easier to navigate through because you can see on the left I've got all the file structure I can just click on straight away, and then here if I want to make a new file I can click on that, and if I want to make a new folder I can click here. One thing to watch out for with Studio Code Server is everything you write is saved in real time. So if I start typing something, that's immediately now saved. So if you are going to make any changes, it might be worth just perhaps copying that particular file to Notepad or something so you can undo if you need to. Navigating to File Editor, this isn't quite as good of an experience because it just opens up a blank window. You've got to click on the Browse File Systems button and then you can see the file structure here. And now I'm going to click on configuration.yaml. If I was to make some changes now, it won't actually apply unless I click the Save button. I personally prefer that option because it stops you from unintentionally making a change and it applying automatically. The thing I don't like is if I now want to navigate to another file, I've got to click here and then browse to the files, and because I haven't saved those changes, if I just click on Scenes, it's going to give you this warning about save changes or close file. I'm just going to click Close File. And if I did want to make a new folder, I would just click there, make new folder. And if I want to make a new file, I would click New File. So both of those editors are somewhat similar or intuitive, but I'm going to do most of the recording from Studio Code Server, but hopefully that overview is enough so that if you are doing it from File Editor instead, you should be able to figure it out. This is the stock configuration.yaml file from a freshly installed Home Assistant build. You'll notice already that some of the entities have already been split out and separated. For example, automations, scenes, and scripts. I'm going to intentionally make this a mess by adding various entities and multiple of them within the configuration.yaml file, and then afterwards I'm going to go through cleaning it up and present you with multiple choices as to how to split this up yourself. I'm going to start off first by splitting the input booleans to a single file like used in these demonstrations, where automation goes to automation.yaml, script goes to script.yaml, and scene goes to scenes.yaml. So first of all, I'm going to create a file and call it input_booleans.yaml. And it's going to take me to a blank file. I'm going to go back to configuration.yaml. I'm then going to copy this part of the input booleans. I'm not going to include this part because it's going to be referenced here shortly. So I'm just going to copy this part, go back to the input booleans.yaml, and I'm going to paste it in. You're going to notice there's excess indentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight all of the files and we're going to hold the Shift key and press Tab, and that just moves all of them by 2 double spaces to the left. Going back to configuration.yaml, we're now going to write a similar line like this example. Because this file exists in the same directory as the configuration.yaml, you don't need to specify a path, it's just the file itself. Had that file been saved within a subdirectory, then you would need to specify that location. So you can see here we've added input boolean include input_booleans.yaml, and we've got the file here as showing. Now we're going to check the configurations are working okay. So if you go to the developer tab and then click check configuration, and you can see that is working fine. You should be able to get away with just clicking instart booleans to reload, but it's better practice sometimes to just give Home Assistant a reboot. So I'm just going to do that now. Now that Home Assistant has restarted, I'm just going to go to Developer Tools, and I'm just going to check the state just to see if the input boolean still exists as an entity. which is looking good because you can see here there are some input booleans showing in the result. Had I got the syntax incorrect, they wouldn't be showing. Now we're going to continue, but this time we're going to create a folder and we're going to link all the input numbers to that particular folder. Just to watch out here, you need to identify whether this is a list or a directory. We're going to be using input directory merge name if it's a dictionary, and it'll be include directory merge list if it's a list. Can you tell what this input number is, whether it's a directory or a list? I'm just going to very quickly open up my previous slide as a reminder, and you may want to pause the video and take a quick photo. This example for input number is known as a dictionary. So just remember, if you see hyphens, it's a list. If there's only indentations, then it's a dictionary. What we're going to do first is create a new folder. You can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it ha-config. So I'm just going to go to the new folder button, give it a name, and I'm also going to create a subfolder within there. I'm going to call this input_numbers. Again, you can call it whatever you want. So you can see now we've got a folder with a new subfolder. What I'm going to do is create two separate files for both input numbers. So I'm going to copy this one. I'm navigating to the input numbers folder. I'm going to create a new file and just call it daily step target. And then hit enter. I'm going to paste the YAML into it. As I mentioned earlier, we're just going to tidy up the indentation. If you just hold the shift key and press tab. And we're going to repeat the same for the other one as well. So go back to configuration.yaml. We're now going to copy the boost temperature. Go back to the input numbers folder, create a new file, paste the YAML, fix the indentation, shift and tab, and now go back to configuration.yaml, and the command we're going to want, because these are dictionaries, is include directory merge named. So input number. I'm just going to paste the command to make it a bit quicker. And then we're just going to delete these. And now we're just going to check the config is working okay. So back to Developer Tools. From the YAML tab, click Check Configuration. And that's looking good. Because those were input numbers, you could restart them from here, but I'm just going to give Home Assistant a reboot. Now that that's restarted, I'm just going to go to Developer Tools and check the state again just to see if the entities exist. So if I do a search for input number, you can see those two devices, those two entities are showing, which is looking good. So now we can move on to the next one. Now I'm going to repeat the same steps but instead of using include directory merge named, we're now going to use include directory merge list. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create another folder for sensors. So I'm going to go to that ha-config parent folder. I'm going to create a new folder and just call it sensors. Now I'm going to copy one of those sensors, and I'm not going to copy that part. Go to the sensors folder, create a new file. Paste it in and then tidy up the indentation, Shift and Tab. I'm now going to repeat the same. Going back to configuration.yaml, I'm going to copy the other sensor. Paste in the code, tidy up the indentation, Shift and Tab. Going back to configuration.yaml, I can now delete these two, and I can delete the sensor. I'm just going to paste this in because it's a little bit quicker. So I've got sensor, include directory merge list, and then it's pointing to the path where the sensors are saved. And as you can probably expect, I'm now going to check the config, go back to developer tools, go to YAML, check the config, looking good. I'm just going to give Home Assistant another restart. Now that Home Assistant has restarted, I'm just going to go to Developer Tools, States, and just see if sensors are showing, which they are. I can see a list of sensors. So again, that has worked. Are you still with me? Good. Now that directory merge name and directory merge list, when I first started splitting up my entities, I had no clue what the difference was, but I wish I'd known that earlier, because that led to me banging my head on the wall quite a few times before I could get that solution solved. Another feature which is quite useful is, let's just say these binary sensors here, that you've got 30 of them, but going forward you want to replace 30 sensors being referenced in one YAML file, and you want to make it like this instead, where it's referencing a path, and then going forward all new binary sensors are individual files. You're probably going to think, oh well, that means straight away I've got to get every 30 individual binary sensor and manually create those files straight away before it's going to work. But actually you can get it to work by doing both, providing these are lists. And the way it's going to work, you're just going to add splits. Now that can be called anything. It doesn't have to be called splits, but that allows you to reference the binary sensors from that existing path, and then going forward, any new ones you've made, you can now put in that new directory. So you don't have to deal with that straight away, or you could just leave that as it is, which is another useful feature which you may or may not use. This is the last part of the section, and I'm going to include packaging. If you've made it this far, then wow, you must have drunk a lot of coffee. The last section, I'm going to cover packages, and to be honest, I don't actually use them myself. And if you're happy just using include directory merge named and include directory merge list, you can probably get away with just stopping the video and you're good to go. The way I see packages is they're a kind of hybrid between include directory merge name and include directory merge list. But instead of having to do this for each entity, for example, having to do one for sensor and one for input number, you will only reference packages and then you just save those files in that particular folder and it will pick it up automatically. The thing that might catch you out is you're probably expecting me to say for binary sensors you're going to copy this part and then you're going to delete the bit where it says binary sensor. With packages, you're going to copy the whole part of that entity. Now it does allow you to include both lists and include dictionaries, but the thing you've got to watch out for is each entity can be one or the other, not both. So you couldn't have binary sensors where they're a combination of lists and dictionaries. They're one or the other. I'm going to go through those steps now. We're just going to do the binary sensor because it's the last item remaining. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a folder. I'm just going to call it packages. And we're just going to leave it in the root directory just to make things So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a folder and call it packages. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a folder and I'm going to call it packages. Now we're going to copy this section of the code. I'm going to paste it in here. So you have to reference that Home Assistant so it allows the integration to work, and it's using include directory merge named and it's got packaging at the end. Now I know what you're going to say, well hold on, this is a list, shouldn't it be include directory merge list? Well, not for packaging, it's only that one. So now we're going to go through the steps. Let's copy all of this and then we'll delete that. And then from the packaging folder, we're going to create a new file and just call it binary sensors. Hit enter, and then we're going to paste that code. This time we are leaving the binary sensor part here, and we don't need to select this text and do Shift and Tab. We're just going to leave it exactly as it is. And obviously and just to confirm this is set up correctly, we're going to go to the developer tools, go to the YAML tab, and we're just going to check configuration. That's looking good. And I'm just going to give Home Assistant another restart. Once Home Assistant has restarted, I'm just going to do one final check. I'm going to go to Developer Tools, go to States, and I'm just going to make sure that binary sensors gives me a result, which is looking good. You can see there I've got the two binary sensors showing. So that's worked. And that's how you split your configuration.yaml without losing your mind. Hopefully this helps avoid you from making the same mistakes I made earlier. If you've got any questions, feel free to post in the comments section, or even better, join my Discord channel where we can discuss this further. If you found that video useful, smash the like button and subscribe if you want to receive more smart home automation tutorials. Bye for now.